Netflix people. Um, this crime scene and the vanishing at the Cecil hotel. Um, this is my second time recording this because the first time I went on another rant and I went off in all these tangents, which might have been entertaining, except for the fact that uh, it it wasn't coherent. I'm not the most linear or logical person, but yeah, I just decided to get rid of that. That was 20 minutes. I know y'all people got better things to do. But basically, what I wanted to say was I haven't gotten to I'm on the. It's four parts. I'm on the second part, and this will not be any spoilers. But um, I find it interesting that they titled it "The Vanishing at the Cecil." Um, First of all, she was staying at the stay on Main. The Cecil Hotel shares the same building. They do somewhat talk about that. Either way, the way they portray the Cecil Hotel in this production, she's not the first person to go missing there. That people come there and overdose, commit suicide. That there's trafficking going on. That there are lots of things going on in this hotel, and it's basically a crisis zone in the middle of a crisis zone. And somehow they were still able to market it as a safe option for travelers. Um, I think that's criminal. I think it is criminal to take advantage of people uh, who you know that they're going by the assumption that most downtowns and most urban centers are where everything historical or tourist wise is centrally located, or if not, that the tourist attractions are like in a radius from that place. And downtown Los Angeles has not been that for hundreds of years. Even with them trying to rebrand the Cecil, it's still where it is. It's still in the heart of at the border of what's called Skid Row, which is pretty much the dumping ground for America's problem of healthcare, mental health problems, social, senior care issues. Pretty much every issue in the country is thrown into this. Um, I don't know how big it is. I think I heard them say it was 56 blocks. I don't know how far it is. I've been there. I've walked through there. As an East Coaster, I've been in worse places. Um, I've walked through Baltimore. Um, I've lived in I've lived in Brownsville, Brooklyn. Um, I've lived in Southwest Atlanta. So yeah, I've seen bad. Um, but Skid Row in LA is a. I think the reason why it looks so horrid is because it is juxtaposed to Hollywood, the idea of Hollywood, because Hollywood is trash too. Um, when people think of Los Angeles, they really are thinking about the west side of Los Angeles. They're thinking about Beverly Hills and Santa Monica, maybe a little bit of Venice, probably not. Um, they might even be thinking more of Pasadena because that is the classic suburban um, ideal California lifestyle. But yeah, I do think that it is odd. I think it is the show is doing a good job of widening the lens of what could have happened to this poor girl in this place. But I do feel like they could do a better job. Maybe they will in the next two parts. Do a better job of telling some other stories of people who've quote unquote vanished there. I think it's also interesting that the obsession with Elisa Lam. I think what we're obsessed with, and we don't, and it hasn't been talked about, but I think it is part of this. Um, I don't know. I don't know whether or not it's basically it's just racism that we think Asian people are better, and why would an Asian middle class girl visiting from Canada be downtown and look, this is what happens when you make the left instead of a right and you're not paying attention and looking both ways. And this is how you can victimize yourself in a country that um, prides itself on being the wild, wild west. And, you know, self protection and your Second Amendment rights and your First Amendment rights to speak up for yourself and, you know, all these things. Like, how, how dare you come here being innocent? And if you're too innocent, this is what'll happen to you. And it's sort of like this cautionary tale. I think that, you know, a lot of people glom onto, but the crimes were happening already. There were already people, and they say like for hundreds of years, people have been coming there to, you know, do dirt. And they were still able to market this to unwitting international tourists and national tourists as a central, affordable, alternative, hostile, shared community shared sort of live staying arrangement uh plays. And it's that's even worse because hostels are marketed to students, basically children, like teenagers traveling. And I've stayed in a few hotels like that, especially like when I was really young and I would go to things and projects in New York City in like 18, 19. um they were all around like they were like just below Broadway. I want to say between like fifth and sixth, like in the 20s in Manhattan. That's coming to mind, but there were like a string of them, of these sort of very cheap accommodations. You share, you know, bunks. You know, share a bathroom with the hallway. And yeah, I mean, you just kind of did those things as students, and you really didn't think about safety or not because you kind of thought like this is life in the city. You're sort of prepped and groomed by, you know, years and years of programming from, you know, movies and television shows that tell you like, oh, you know, that's part of being in the city, the edge and the danger and the glamour, and like as long as you're not a part of it, you know. But I think that threat is a little different when you're a female. I think that threat's a little different when you come from another country. I think that threat's a little different when you're dealing with mental health issues. Those things change the scope of things, and I just, in my heart of hearts, don't think it's right to take advantage of that lack of knowledge and allow somebody to be put in that position. They are starting to talk more about the conspiracy angle and the internet sleuths that talked about it. And I was one of those people who kind of fell into that whole paranormal activity elevator game thing. But now I look at it and I just see it as a person in fight or flight who's trying to figure out a way to avoid what might be a perceived threat created by real threats that Maybe I can try this. Maybe I can fake them out and not let them know what floor I'm getting off on. Is someone coming? Somebody's not coming. So now it looks weird. There's too many buttons pressed. So they hop out of the elevator. I'm going to act like I'm getting in the elevator, but the door is broken. Let me come up with a story. I see a lot of things happening that look a lot more um, feasible than some crazy witchcraft elevator game that we were sort of like glamorizing. And at the end of the day, it really is just a story of um, an unwitting, innocent person winding up in an epicenter of crisis in a country that pretends like um, those things aren't happening. They aren't happening because of anything we're doing. They're happening to those people over there. And if you just so happen to end up amongst those people, then it's kind of on you. And I feel like I mentioned it already because I was talking about it in my other take of this video, but Mitrice Richardson is another case that comes to mind. She was a young black lady who went to a restaurant, had a psychotic break. They called the cops on her, and then she disappeared from the police station, only to turn up dead several months later. Only after the family pressured police investigators to go follow up on this issue. I feel like that's a much more interesting case that deserves a series as well. But um, yeah, we've got to be a lot more transparent about actually how dangerous it is, and how what you have to do to be a independent traveling person in the United States, in the world. We don't talk about how common it is that people try to drug people and put things in their drinks. We don't talk about random kidnappings that are kind of commonplace in certain places. We don't talk about these things because there's a lot of money behind marketing tourist destinations. So you want to keep up the image and support small businesses and all these things that we're always saying, and we're quite literally killing each other to make a small amount of profit. I don't understand how the building still exists, that it is not completely just cordoned off as a low income housing alternative that requires a certain amount of security, has a housing authority police person on premises. Um, I don't understand it, and why you would want to mix young people who may or may not have a grasp of the language. Not saying that Elisa did, but just there were other there. It was a youth hostel, and that's how it was marketed. I just think it's a recipe for disaster, and yeah, you know, child, you got to watch your back in America, even if you paying. It's sad.